The hall was overflowing with energy, lights shimmering across the room as cameras aligned for the perfect shot. The 2025 Weibo TV and Internet Video Summit was nearing its peak, with A-list stars crossing paths in carefully choreographed sequences. But among the glitz, the cheers, and the polished professionalism, no one expected the moment that would soon dominate every trending page. Shen Yue walked onto the stage with that familiar, quiet elegance, her soft smile, her poised steps, her delicate confidence that never demanded attention but always received it anyway. She wore a simple, cream-toned dress that caught the light beautifully, and on her wrist, the silver bracelet she had worn for the last 3 award seasons glimmered faintly. Fans had always wondered about that bracelet, where it came from, who gave it to her, why she never left home without it. Tonight, they would finally get their answer, though not in the way anyone predicted. As she moved toward her designated spot on stage, she reached across to adjust her mic, and in a moment so small it could have gone unnoticed, the clasp of her bracelet loosened. It slid down her wrist, clinking softly against her skin. Shen Yue didn't even notice. It fell with the gentlest sound, a tiny metallic whisper that got lost beneath the booming applause. But one person noticed instantly. Wang. He wasn't even standing near her at first. He was positioned on the opposite side of the stage, surrounded by other actors, smiling politely for the cameras. Yet the moment that bracelet hit the floor, his eyes snapped toward her, as if drawn by instinct. It wasn't the sound. It wasn't the movement. It was something far deeper, something that made him focus on her even in a crowded hall. Shen Yue moved forward, unaware of anything happening behind her. She kept her practiced smile, her posture perfect, her steps even. Meanwhile, staff scrambled quietly to prepare for the upcoming presentation. But Dylan stopped listening to everything around him. He excused himself from the cluster of celebrities and walked toward the center of the stage with a calmness that masked the urgency in his eyes. He reached down before a single staff member even realized something had dropped. His fingers picked up the bracelet carefully, as if it were fragile, precious, something he recognized immediately. Something he'd seen before, something he had memories of. The silver glinted faintly in his hand. And for a brief second, Dylan wasn't on a public stage, wasn't surrounded by thousands of people, wasn't performing for flashing cameras. He was caught in a memory, a quiet moment 2 years ago when Shen Yue had first shown him that bracelet on the set of their drama. When she'd explained, half shy, that it was a gift. When she'd refused to say from who. And now he held it again. But what happened next was even more unexpected. He didn't hand it to a staff member. He didn't pocket it discreetly. He didn't pretend he didn't see it. Instead, he walked straight toward her. Not fast, not careless, but with a deliberateness that made several people turn their heads. Shen Yue, noticing movement in her peripheral vision, shifted slightly. Her eyes widened when she realized who was approaching her. Dylan wasn't supposed to be at her side. They weren't scheduled to interact yet. They weren't even meant to stand close together for another segment. The audience murmured softly, confused but intrigued. Shen Yue blinked, her voice a whisper only the two of them could hear. "Why are you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for her wrist gently, his fingers brushing her skin for the briefest second as he lifted the bracelet into view. Shen Yue froze on instinct, her breath catching in her throat. She felt the weight of eyes on them. Fans, staff, celebrities, cameras. But in that moment, all she could see was him. "You dropped this," Dylan said, his voice barely louder than a breath, yet filled with something unspoken. Her heart stuttered. She stared at the bracelet in his hand, then at his face, and something inside her softened. "I didn't even notice," she whispered. "I did," he replied. The way he said it, quiet, steady, sure, was unlike anything the audience had seen from him tonight. There was something familiar in his tone, something gentle, something that didn't belong on a brightly lit stage surrounded by reporters. Cameras shifted instantly, capturing angles and zooming in on their interaction. This was not in the script. This was not coordinated. This was something real. Slowly, he lifted the bracelet and held it out to her. She reached for it, her fingers brushing his. The moment was so soft, so intimate, that even the crowd fell silent, sensing the gravity of something that wasn't meant to be public. But Dylan didn't just hand it to her. He clasped it back onto her wrist himself. He held her hand steady, fixed the clasp with practiced ease, and let his fingers linger just long enough for Shen Yue to feel warmth spread through her entire body. The audience erupted. Gasps, murmurs, flashes. Staff exchanged confused looks. Even other celebrities pretended not to stare while clearly staring. Shen Yue's face flushed a delicate pink. She took a small step back, trying to collect herself, her breath unsteady. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "I know," he answered softly, "but I wanted—" The world around them buzzed with electricity. Fans on live stream exploded with comments, theories, speculations. People scrambled to understand what they had just seen. It wasn't scripted, wasn't casual, and it wasn't the kind of interaction co-stars usually shared. It felt too natural, too intimate, too familiar. The host on stage tried to regain control of the program, but the energy had shifted entirely. Shen Yue took her position, trying desperately to return to her calm, professional demeanor. Dylan stepped back, hands clasped behind him, expression neutral, but the faint warmth in his eyes betrayed everything. Throughout the presentation, their gazes met again and again. Small, fleeting glances, each one charged with meaning neither could hide. Shen Yue tried to focus on reading her lines, but she felt her pulse racing every time Dylan was within a few feet. The bracelet felt heavier on her wrist than ever before. There was history behind that bracelet, something neither of them had ever addressed publicly, something that had been quietly sitting between them without being acknowledged. But tonight, Dylan's reaction had dragged it into the light. After the segment ended, staff guided them toward the back of the stage. The lights dimmed, applause faded, and a hum of whispers filled the air. Before she could slip away, a hand gently touched the small of her back. Shen Yue stiffened, turning around, but relaxed when she saw Dylan standing behind her. He looked calm, but his eyes were filled with the same question she felt inside herself. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded slowly. "I wasn't expecting that." "Neither was I," he admitted. "But I saw it fall. I couldn't just ignore it." She looked down at her wrist, at the bracelet that now felt like a silent message neither of them had the courage to speak aloud. "It means something to you," Dylan said gently. "So I picked it up." Shen Yue swallowed. Her throat tightened. "It does," she whispered. "More than anyone knows." Dylan's expression softened. "I figured." The corridor felt too small, too quiet, too intimate for this kind of conversation. Yet neither of them stepped back. Neither looked away. "Thank you," she finally said, barely louder than.